Hey guys, Brendan Hall here alongside Andy Smith. We're still going strong here, 12 hours after the day started here at LaLotra Park, home of the MIAA Baseball State Championships once again. And if you can see behind us, the Lowell Spinners are running a practice. They had intended to start a 7 o'clock practice here, but thanks to a marathon game we had here in the Division II state title game, a 12-inning thriller, they're starting a little bit late, so we're kind of working with them here. But let's talk about that game here. Hingham 7, Auburn 6. They tie it up with 2 outs to go in the bottom of the 7th, and they play another 5 innings. And then getting the game-winning hit, Cody Clifford, bottom of the 12th, walk-off with the bases loaded. Couldn't ask for a better ending to the high school baseball season than what we saw right there, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, especially talking about Cody, he started the game batting 8th, I believe, and he was removed from the game after striking out twice. And then for some reason, the coach said, you know what, I'm going to go with him again. And they put him back into the game with the bases loaded when they needed him the most, and he comes up with a clutch hit. So it was a pretty stunning performance for a kid that, hadn't played very well up until that point. So it was a heck of a time to get the game-winning hit,
And we talk about Evan Flanagan, the Rhode Island-bound right-hander, their ace of the rotation. Certainly played his way into an all-state performance spot, rather, with this performance. And but boy, the relief pitching was terrific here too. How about Carlson? He had his stuff on in relief. It seemed like he could have gone up another couple innings.
Yeah, I mean, the lefty had his curveball going. You could tell he was getting under bats a lot early on. He wasn't throwing the hardest we've ever seen, but he was pitching effectively. That's probably the best compliment I can give somebody. And he said after the game, he said he could have gone longer, and I tried to ask him, how much farther specifically could you have gone? And he said, until we won. And I said, you weren't feeling like you were losing any miles per hour off your fastball. You weren't losing effectiveness of the pitches. He said, absolutely not. He said, I could have gone until they won. So, I mean, when your starting pitcher goes 4 innings, and then a guy can come in and throw 8, I mean, you can't really ask for much more. And they didn't even have anybody warming up in the bullpen as a contingency plan in case things fell apart. And so they were just going to stick with him, and he performed. I think it was one run he gave up in his entire 8 innings of relief. So, I mean, not much more you can say about that. It's pretty good.
You know what? State championship, boys. You play till your arm falls off, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, right.
But it was no shortage of drama today. The first game of the day, which you covered, Middleborough getting a walk-off win, just like they did in 1997, their last state title, in same fashion, a 4-3 win over Hopedale in Coach Small's last game. For Hopedale, a 2 RBI ball right into right field, and they just put it there. A lot of emotions running into this one. They talk a lot about Jim Braga, the teacher at Middleborough High who was killed tragically before the season, and how that's always been heavy on their minds. A lot of inspiration, a lot of emotion. Gotta love Kevin Husher in the post game. Really confident kid, and we talked about his at bat and what he looked for. Pretty remarkable how stern that kid is.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, what's going to probably get lost in all this is that it almost wasn't. He came out in his at bat, bases loaded, 2 outs, game almost over, and he came out first pitch swinging, and it went high down the right field line, and it looked like the right fielder was going to get under it in foul territory and make the catch. But luckily, he overplayed the ball. It fell behind him, giving him another pitch, and then he put it up the middle and ended up winning the game. So it was one of those things, you talk about playing for something and thinking that there's some things beyond the game that are going on, and it seemed like one of those moments that was just kind of fit, where the ball kind of curved in a certain way, and fell where it could have been caught on a different day maybe. It just felt like it was Middleborough's time, and and on the very next pitch, he just puts it right up the middle, 2 runs score, and ends what was a storybook postseason for them.
And a storybook ending for Bridgewater Raynham in the Division I game, beating Neshoba 4-0. Their first state title in school history. They've now made it 3 public schools in the last 4 Division I state championships to come home champion. Interesting note as we go into Super 8 here next year. But we talk about some gamers. And Mike Brumell, the lefty, Old Colony League co-MVP, 2-hitter, had a no going into the 8th inning. His stuff was really clicking today.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell, and when he gave up that first hit in the 8th, he bent down. You could tell that he really wanted the no-hitter. He didn't just want the win; he wanted the no-hitter. But the bats came alive for them when they really needed it the most. he really shut down the Neshoba lineup. No, 2 hits over the entire complete game. And like you said, it just puts an exclamation point on what was a very strong postseason for them, beating the likes of BC High, coming from behind to beat Walpole and Bill Ricca before, a couple of days before playing this game. So that's 3 pretty quality teams that they went ahead and beat, and they put an exclamation point on it with a shutout in the most important game of the season. So, it's not much more you can say. It was a heck of a performance from them.
Quite the run there for Bridgewater Rainy. You mentioned they were down 6-0 in the first inning to Walpole in the semifinals. Come back to win that 13-9. Then the BC High game, the great double play to end the game there on an absolute shot by Ryan Tufts to win the South title, and then beating Bill Ricca here at this park a couple days earlier to get to this point. Can't say enough about John Kearney. And guess what? They're going to be really good next year. A lot of these kids are underclassmen. We talk about Mike Connolly, Andrew Noviello, Joe Friday, who's picking up a lot of Division I interest now, from what I understand. They're all going to be back next year. They could be right back in this thing. They could be in the Super 8 next year, in that first year. How about that? And speaking of that, we talk about great individuals. And next week, our postseason awards are coming up. We got our Mr. Baseball Award, which will be released in a couple of days, and then our All-State team. Certainly some names that have popped up as shoo-ins here. I think everyone will agree. Brandon Bingle from St. John's Prep was kind of in a league of his own for most of the season. We talk about some great pitchers. Tommy McDonald from BC High, the UMass commit. We talk about Mike Goggin from Walpole. Plenty of names to choose from here. A couple of names I'm going to throw out there is guys who have really elevated their game and made a case. Guys like Evan Flanagan here. The 16K performance against Nauset, one of the best performances of the postseason. And then Joe Friday, leading the team in RBI going into the postseason with 30. And definitely, swinging the bats today. You got a pretty heavy bat there. Terrific arm, throwing guys out at second. Multi-tool player here. We thank you for tuning in all spring long. This has been another fantastic season. A lot of fun as usual. Don't worry. We're going to come back with you some more highlights here later in the week, and we'll get our postseason awards running away. But for now, for Andy Smith, I'm Brendan Hall signing off. And for more coverage, go to ESPNBoston.com.